I came home for Christmas and my spot at the table was gone. Not moved. Gone. The lemon pie I had baked was still warm in my hands when I noticed 6 plates glinting under the chandelier, one of them sitting exactly where mine should have been. Mom smiled as if everything were normal. It's just immediate family this year, she said, sliding a plate toward my sister's fiancé. In my head, the room fell silent, like snow muffling every sound. I set the pie down, returned her smile, and thought, if family is supposed to mean belonging, what do you do when they quietly vote you out? Mom always said Christmas was about tradition. The garland along the banister, the same chipped snowman mugs, the music station looping Bing Crosby. It was all there. Everything looked perfect. That's what made it hurt. Perfect, except for one thing, me. I lingered in the doorway, pretending to brush snow from my coat while the others filled the room with chatter. Grace, my sister, glowed in a red sweater I had given her last year. Brent, her fiancé, laughed too loudly at something Dad said. That deep, corporate laugh that fills space and demands approval. Mom hovered near the stove, orchestrating everything like a stage manager who already knew the cues. Do you need help with the table? I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't look up. We're all set, sweetheart. It's just immediate family this year. Her voice was flat, practical. The same tone she might use to report tomorrow's weather. Not angry, not cruel. Simply certain. That certainty cut deeper than any argument ever could. I looked back at the table. 6 plates. Mom, Dad, Grace, Brent, Uncle Neil, Karen, his new girlfriend of 3 months. A family extended where it suited others, trimmed where it didn't. My spot, the one I'd occupied every year for as long as I could remember, had been taken by Brent. My name card gone, my place erased. Grace's smile faltered for just a moment, enough to betray guilt. I didn't know you were here. I thought you were coming later. Yeah, I said softly. I guess I should have called ahead. No one corrected me. For a heartbeat, I almost reached for a folding chair, like I used to when the cousins came over. But something stopped me. Not anger. Clarity. I had spent years as the quiet backbone of this family. The one who sent money when bills piled up. Who fixed things before they broke. Covered rent for Grace when she was between jobs. Paid for repairs on the lake house Dad refused to acknowledge needed work. Grocery cards. Prime memberships. Streaming accounts. Everything ran through me. I thought that made me part of them. I thought contribution meant belonging. But as Mom set the last plate in front of Brent, I realized it had never been about gratitude. It had always been about convenience. I wasn't family. I was still standing. Mom wiped her hands on a towel and called everyone to the table. Her voice was warm again, the kind that made strangers feel welcome. I lingered for a beat longer, waiting for someone to notice I hadn't sat down. No one did. I smiled, adjusted my scarf, and said, "Go ahead without me." Mom nodded, as if I'd just confirmed her plan. "We'll save you some pie." I stepped out before she remembered it was mine. The cold hit sharper than I expected. Snowflakes clung to my hair, melting down my collar as I trudged toward the car. Behind me, the house glowed like a perfect postcard. Warm, inviting, utterly false. Through the frosted window, I caught Grace raising her glass, Brent saying something that made everyone laugh. My mother smiled. From the outside, it was a picture-perfect moment. Inside, it was the quietest betrayal I'd ever seen. I slid into the driver's seat, the pie resting untouched on the passenger side, and watched my breath fog the air. I told myself to start the car, but my hand stayed still. The radio was still on from the trip, Bing Crosby humming. "I'll be home for Christmas." The irony nearly made me laugh. Nearly. My mind drifted over the past few years, how every problem in that house somehow landed on my screen. Grace's rent, Mom's electric bill, Dad's temporary loan for the lake house repairs. They never asked outright. They just hinted, waited. And I always filled the silence with money. Because that's what you do when you love people, right? You make it easier for them. But love, I realized, had turned into a transaction, and I was the only one still paying. I pictured the spreadsheet on my laptop, the one where I tracked every expense. Under family, the numbers never stopped climbing. Grocery cards, subscriptions, emergencies that somehow repeated monthly. I told myself it was normal, that it was love. But sitting there in the dark, I finally saw the truth. Maintenance. I had been maintaining their comfort at the cost of my own. Headlights from another car swept over me, and for a moment I saw my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, tight jaw, untouched pie. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would have been too easy. What I felt was quieter, heavier, like a balance shifting. I remembered something Mom told me when I was 16. Grace needs more attention. You're stronger, Adele. Back then, I believed her. I thought strength meant giving more, needing less. But strength without boundaries isn't strength. It's servitude. A knock on the glass pulled me out of my thoughts. A kid from next door waved awkwardly, gesturing at the snow piling up on the driveway. I nodded, turned the ignition, and let the heater fill the car with its steady hum. As I backed out, I caught one last glimpse of the house. My mother leaning toward Brent, laughing at something he said, her hand on his shoulder. Proud and possessive. She never looked at me that way. The snow thickened as I merged onto the main road. The wipers moved slow and steady, marking time like a metronome. People say silence keeps peace. In my family, silence was how you disappeared. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just drove home and made a quiet promise. Never again would I buy my place at that table. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was midnight. The kind of cold that seeps through walls and settles in your bones. I set the lemon pie on the counter, still untouched, and stood there a moment, coat half off, shoes still wet, breathing in the quiet. The quiet felt real. No forced chuckles, no background noise pretending everything was fine. Just the low hum of the fridge and the steady tick of the clock above it. I poured a glass of water and caught my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, a reddened nose, a woman who looked like she'd finally stopped pretending. My phone buzzed. Mom, then Grace, then Dad. 32 messages stacked like silent accusations. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I moved to my desk and opened my laptop. The screen illuminated the room with a cold, blue light. My budgeting app, still open from last week, glared back at me. Family expenses. It read like a quiet punch in the gut. Click. The $600 monthly transfer to Mom and Dad paused. Click. Grace's car loan payment canceled. Click. Prime subscription ended. Click. Netflix logged out from every device. Each click sounded like a match being struck. Not to burn bridges, but to light a path out. I left no note, no announcement, no explanation, just quiet. Boundaries carved where noise used to live. Another message pinged. Are you seriously doing this over one dinner? I shut the laptop. Instead, I made coffee, even though it was past one. The aroma filled the room, anchoring me. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, letting it seep in. For years, I'd been the backup, the helper, the reliable one who never refused. Tonight, I said no without a word. A memory flashed. Mom in the kitchen when I was 12, telling Grace she had a creative spark. Then turning to me, and you, Adele, you're the practical one. You'll keep things running. Back then, I thought it was praise. Tonight, it sounded like a sentence I'd finally served. The phone buzzed again. Then the doorbell. I didn't move. Whoever it was could wait in the snow a little longer. I sipped my coffee, eyeing the pie on the counter. Its crust had cooled, the lemon scent fading to a faint, almost bitter trace. Like sweetness left waiting too long. For the first time, I wasn't anxious about who needed me, who might be disappointed. The apartment felt small but entirely mine. I shut off the lights, leaving only the laptop glow. On the screen, the balance looked lighter than it had ever been. People imagine revenge as loud, but sometimes it's just the soft click of a final decision in an empty room. The next morning, the knocking began before sunrise. Sharp, impatient, demanding compliance. I let it continue, watching the shadow shift behind the frosted glass. When I finally opened the door, Mom and Grace stood there, coats unbuttoned, snow dusting their hair. They looked like their patience had expired hours ago. What did you do? Mom demanded, stepping inside before even saying hello. No greeting, no Merry Christmas. Just accusation. I leaned against the doorframe. Good morning to you, too. Her voice tightened. Why didn't the money go through? My grocery card got declined. Grace can't cover her car payment. You canceled Prime. You're being cruel. I studied her face. The same one that used to check my forehead for fevers, now flushed with outrage instead of concern. Cruel, I said softly, for paying my own way instead of everyone else's. You weren't uninvited, she snapped. It was just a smaller dinner, with a plate set aside for Brent, I replied. He's part of Grace's future, she said, folding her arms. We didn't think you'd make a big deal out of it, she added. Then she hit me with a line that cut deeper than anything before. You have no husband, no kids, and you make good money. It's your responsibility to support this family while Grace is starting her life. Grace didn't speak. She just looked down, cheeks red. Something inside me shifted, quietly and irreversibly. For years, I'd tried to fit into a role they had already rewritten. They hadn't forgotten my place. They'd reassigned it. I'm done, I said. Mom blinked, startled by the calm in my voice. You're choosing a fight. I'm choosing a boundary, I said. If you see it as a fight, that's on you. Her mouth twisted. Don't make this sound noble, Adele. You're abandoning your family. No, I said gently. I'm just refusing to keep funding one. The silence stretched long enough for snow to begin melting on their coats. Grace tried, voice trembling. Don't make this ugly. It already is, I said. I just stopped pretending it's not. Mom sighed, switching tactics. You'll regret this. One day you'll need us. If that day comes, I said, stepping back, I hope you answer the door. They left without another word, footsteps crunching down the hall. The air felt lighter once the door shut behind them. The next few days, my phone turned into a battlefield. Dozens of texts, some pleading, some angry, some wrapped in guilt masquerading as concern. I muted the group chat, turned off notifications. The quiet was addictive. Then, on January 3rd, a message arrived from an unexpected number, Brent Callahan. No greeting, no preamble, just a single line and an attachment. I don't know if I should send this, but you deserve to hear it. It was an audio file. At first, I could hear only background noise. Forks clinking, Christmas music faintly playing, chairs scraping. Then voices. Uncle Neil. So, how's the martyr doing? Mom laughing, probably sulking because we ruined her day. Grace, she'll get over it. She always does. Dad, voice low. At least now we can have a holiday without one of her lectures. Karen, she always tries too hard. The gifts, the clothes. It's exhausting. Laughter followed. Then Brent's voice uncertain. You know, she can probably hear all of this through the door. The recording went silent, like guilt had briefly found air. When it ended, I just sat there, phone in hand, coffee cooling beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The hurt was colder than anything else, sharp and precise. A second message from Brent arrived. I'm sorry. I didn't know they spoke about you like that. I told Grace it was wrong. She got angry. I moved into the house after New Year's, but it was bad. I stared at his message. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who had taken my seat was the only one honest enough to send me the truth. For days, I tried not to replay that recording. I failed. Every laugh, every cutting remark etched itself deeper. But anger, when it lingers too long, eventually cools into clarity. So when the next knock came a week later, softer this time, I was ready. Mom again, Grace trailing behind, dark circles under her eyes. The kitchen caught fire, Mom said, voice shaking. It's bad. We need help until insurance clears. I stayed in the doorway. Is everyone okay? I asked. Yes, she said quickly. We just need a little help to get through the month. There it was again. Not thank you. Not reassurance. Just the ask. Always the ask. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Mom's face softened. Hopeful, relieved. But when she opened it, her expression froze. Inside was a single $50 bill. What is this supposed to be? She asked. That, I said, is what my seat at the table was worth. The silence that followed hung heavy, like snow before it falls thick and steady. That's not fair, Grace whispered. Neither was Christmas, I replied. Mom's voice sharpened. You're being spiteful. No, I said calmly. I'm being consistent. I set the envelope on the counter, next to a pile of burned recipe cards, and turned to leave. You don't have to be like this, Grace called after me. I paused at the door. Like what? Cold. I met her eyes. You called me cold when I stopped paying your heat bill too. She said nothing. Outside, the wind bit at my face, sharp and clean. I walked to my car, each step cutting through the snow like punctuation. At home, I lit a candle, made tea, and sat by the window. The city was quiet, the kind of stillness that comes only after a storm. My phone buzzed. Another message from Mom, then Dad. Please, Adele, it's family. I turned the phone face down. Family shouldn't sound like a demand. The next morning, Brent showed up at my door. His eyes were tired, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. I moved out, he said. I couldn't stay there anymore. He handed me another envelope. Receipts, statements, my name printed neatly at the top of every page. She opened a credit card under your name, he said quietly. About $8,000 in charges. Said you'd understand. Said you'd never press charges because you're family. Something inside me went still. Not shock, not surprise, just confirmation. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it's wrong, he said. And I couldn't keep pretending. When he left, I spread the papers across my desk. Restaurant bills, hotel stays, a stroller from an upscale boutique. $8,000 of proof. That night, I called the bank. Then a lawyer. The process was slow, methodical, almost clinical, but with each signature, every verification, I felt a little lighter. 2 days later, Grace texted me, "You don't have to make this worse." The next day, my mom called. I thought, we don't call the police on family, but maybe we should, because silence had protected them long enough. When the police finally reached out to Grace, the calls stopped. The noise ended. Weeks later, the lawyer confirmed it. My name cleared. Account closed. Justice didn't arrive with fanfare or celebration. It came quietly in paperwork and peace. That night, I sat by the same window, candle flickering low, and whispered to myself, the debt is paid. March arrived softly. The snow began to melt along the sidewalks, leaving gray streaks and the faint scent of thawed air. My phone remained silent. No calls, no messages, no guilt disguised as love. I thought I'd miss the noise, but peace had its own rhythm. The hiss of the radiator, coffee brewing, the occasional laugh when something on TV actually amused me. One afternoon, my lawyer called. Everything's finalized, she said. The accounts have been cleared, and the bank issued an apology for the delay. After we hung up, I just sat there, absorbing the quiet. Months of tension had ended, and there was no next crisis lurking around the corner. I poured a cup of coffee, letting the aroma fill the apartment, and looked out the window. The city glimmered in pale sunlight, reflections dancing in puddles where snow had been. Then my phone buzzed with a voicemail. Dad. I hesitated, thumb hovering, then pressed play. Hey, sweetheart. I don't know if you'll listen to this, but I need to say it anyway. You were right. We treated you like a safety net, and when you stepped away, the house fell apart. Your mom isn't ready to admit it, and Grace, well, she's Grace. But I see it now. We built a family that only made noise when it wanted something. I'm sorry. I hope someday you'll talk to us again. Not for money, just to talk. The message ended with silence, then the faint exhale of relief tangled with regret. I didn't cry. I just smiled faintly, saving the voicemail. Not to replay it, but to keep proof that some truths finally land. Then I opened my notebook, the one where I had tracked every dollar, every favor, every quiet act of generosity, and wrote one last entry, the debt is paid. Closing the cover, the sound felt final, like a lock clicking shut. Outside, the snow was gone. That evening, I washed the pie dish that had sat untouched since Christmas and slid it back into the cupboard. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon and coffee, the scent of peace finally finding room to breathe. I sat by the window with a mug of tea, watching the last patches of snow dissolve under the streetlights. For years, I thought family meant endurance. Now, I know it means choice. I came home for Christmas once, but I found something better than a seat at their table. My own peace. If you've ever been left standing where your chair should have been, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe for the next.